It's time to breathe again on the latest Breath of Fresh Air Shorty with your host, Charles Taylor. So it is good to be back on one of these things. It has been a while trying to work around consistency issues. So bear with me, but it's going to get better here shortly as I continue to find my niche and get back to being consistent with one of these at least once a week or every other week. But as you guys know, we are still doing the webcast every Tuesday evening. So that should be enough for now, but we'll make sure that you get your fill of the breath of fresh air some way, shape, or form. At any rate, I am back on this shorty to talk about the NFLPA, the National Football League Players Association. And I'm here to talk about them because, well, they're probably one of the worst unions in the history of unions, to be honest. Look, we know the situation that is going on with Deshaun Watson, the Cleveland Browns quarterback. Got a huge contract with them after all of the sexual misconduct allegations from massage therapists. We know that whole story by now. Um, the thing that is bringing me toward the NFLPA is really just the way they handle things with the National Football League in terms of dealing with disciplinary issues. And it's really laughable when they decide they want to file grievances. And here's why. Now, the Deshaun Watson case is the latest example of this, but this isn't as much about Watson as it is about how the NFLPA goes about handling uh, disciplinary issues and how things of this nature are collectively bargained in their CBAs. Now, when you look at how the commissioner, Roger Goodell, decides these things, let's go back to the previous collective bargaining agreement where basically Roger Goodell was the judge, jury, and executioner when it came to everything uh, disciplinary, when it came down to handing down punishments uh, based off of the league's personal conduct policy. Of course, the NFLPA, after this was collectively bargained in the agreement, said they didn't like how he was coming to these decisions. And when the next collective bargaining agreement came to fruition, that was going to get fixed. Well, it kind of got fixed, but in the grand scheme of things, it really didn't. And what you have now, when it comes to this latest saga with Deshaun Watson, is an independent arbitrator, Sue Robinson, was chosen to look at what the punishment could be for Watson. We know it was 6 games that Sue Robinson had recommended based off of what was written down in the personal conduct policy. The NFL, it was reported, they wanted a year, pretty much a year minimum, or an indefinite suspension, and then they could come back and revisit it at a later time. But uh, a year was what the NFL was looking for. Sue Robinson didn't recommend a year. It was 6 months or 6 games. Now, in the collective bargaining agreement, it says uh, if the NFL does not agree with the independent arbitrator, they can appeal the decision, which they decided to do before last Thursday's deadline. So now Roger Goodell could look at it, or he could appoint somebody to look at what is there according to the cases that were brought up to Sue Robinson. So the independent person that was appointed by Goodell is Peter C. Harvey, who was a former attorney general for the state of New Jersey. Now, it's hard not to believe Goodell wouldn't appoint somebody who would have a favorable view toward the NFL's viewpoint when it comes to the punishment for Deshaun Watson. It seems pretty, at least to me, it seems pretty, what's the word? Pretty, it's almost a sure thing. This suspension will go up. How much it will go up, I'm not for sure on that, but it will probably be more than 6 games. So whenever that decision comes down, it will be more than 6 games. And the NFLPA, of course, will go and they'll file a grievance, which is very, very laughable. And that brings me to my point about why the NFLPA is one of the worst unions in the history of unions. They collectively bargained the part where Goodell had executive power. They didn't like it. And now they did this new collective bargaining agreement. And yes, you have an independent arbitrator who could look at it, but the NFL can appeal. And if it's not Roger Goodell, it's going to be somebody who he appoints. And ultimately, Goodell is still going to have the final say so. So, really, after all that, what did you accomplish in this new collective bargaining agreement? Because it still appears Roger Goodell is the judge, jury, and executioner in terms of who decides punishments based off of the personal conduct policy. It just makes absolutely no sense. And all this is a more roundabout way to get to where you were before. And it's just another notch on the checklist of garbageness the NFLPA has in their cap. When they talk about player safety, we all remember that. Oh, we're so worried about the safety of the players, but you go and you add another game to the schedule. You have 17 games now. It probably won't be long before it's an 18 game regular season schedule. And as long as everybody's getting paid, nobody's going to have a complaint. But so much for that player's safety. I can go on and on with how the NFLPA is just continuously messing themselves up when it comes to just simple negotiations. If you don't want something, then stick to your guns. And I mean, if you're a player, I mean, how much really, I guess I would have to ask the players this, but how much really do you depend on the players or on the players union to really have your back? Because when it comes to these collective bargaining agreements, it really doesn't matter. And then they try to come back and say there's a double standard when it comes to owners, which there is. I mean, don't get me wrong, there definitely is a double standard when it comes to owners because there's a lot of these owners who have gotten into a lot of hot water over the years. You have Robert Kraft and that situation down in Florida where I guess he got caught in sex trafficking somehow. And then you have another owner in the Washington Commanders owner, Daniel Snyder, who is basically staying on his yacht so he can't testify in front of Congress for allegations of workplace misconduct within the franchise. And Jerry Jones, the owner for the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, how many things has he been involved in over the past few months? But it seems these owners are untouchable, and you understand why. Roger Goodell works for the owners, so of course he's not going to do too much to them. And then you have Stephen Ross with the Miami Dolphins. He got handed down a fine, but he still gets to run the team, so it's really not too much of a punishment there. He could sneeze with $1 million. He's worth billions of dollars. But the NFLPA is not helping the matter at all, and it just turns into an absolute mess when it comes to them dealing with these collective bargaining agreements. And then they talk about they're going to sue and they're going to file grievances. They're just laughable. They're completely and utterly laughable because the collective bargaining agreement says what it says. Now, I don't really like those type of sayings. It is what it is, whatnot. But it does apply in this case because that's all that's going to be thrown back into their faces. And they could have had all this stuff situated, but they went in the direction of just trying to get as much money as possible. And Roger Goodell still holds executive power. So the garbageness continues to follow, and the NFLPA are the ones to blame. So if the players are upset about punishments handed down, those are the people they need to go after. That will conclude this shorty for today. It is what I am breathing on. Y'all make sure y'all take a look at the Breath of Fresh Air YouTube channel. and smash that subscribe button and keep the follows coming on the Breath of Fresh Air Facebook page. We will be back tomorrow evening with the webcast. And until then, y'all take care and have a good Monday.